Great morning. Welcome to a chat with JDIV. I'm your host, Joseph Dean IV, and today we have with us on the show, Kenya Cannon. Welcome, Kenya.
Good morning. Good morning.
It is so cool to have you on the show. Kenya and I, she's one of the daughters of LHM. This segment of this month is about the sons and daughters of LHM. So I think that we have a divine connection. I think God has some way hipped her, tied us at the hip to walk some things out in the church and outside the church. For those who don't know, she and I, we've actually worked together on our job, and we became friends. And from there, she became a part of the church, and we've just been growing ever since then. So, Kenya, let's just talk about the woman, Kenya Cannon. Who is Kenya Cannon? Tell them who you are.
Ooh, Kenya Cannon. Kenya Cannon is a very busy individual. Let's see, of course, I reigned from Beauregard, Alabama, whoop, whoop, but I moved here in 2005 when I started with the state on a job. And I've been here ever since, but I do a little some of everything. I, of course, am a member of Lighthouse Ministries and one of the ordained pastors there. I also have my own business, Love Can Expressions, LLC, where I pretty much a graphic design business from logos to postcards to banners, backdrops, etc. And then on top of that, I also do things within the Lighthouse International Fellowship, which is another subsidy with Apostle Joseph Dean. And I do a lot of the administrative work with that. So I kind of have a whole slew of things that I do, and I don't slow down a whole lot. And when I do, I'm normally asleep.
So we're going to talk about, I've been asking this question to everybody.
Okay.
Started out with Demetric first. I remember when we met, I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had, because I'm pretty good about retaining stuff. You know, I don't always write it, but I can almost regurgitate the bacteria off of my mind. You made a statement. You said the word became alive when we started talking.
Yeah. For many who do not know me, I am also Kenya Cannon, a pastor's daughter, meaning I grew up in the church. I was drugged from church to church and from service to service. So where I come from, Baptist and some AME, being a kid, you don't really gravitate to the word because, you're being drugged from church to church. So in your young adult years, of course, when I moved here, it's like, wait, this is relevant for me, for real? So it's not just that I'm a kid and knowing about it. Now I have to be an adult and gravitate to it and learn more about it. So to come alive for me, meaning, wait, I can see this in work. I can see this in action. As soon as I apply some things, and if I meditate on some things and ask the Lord out of the goodness of my heart with no motives, you mean he'll do this for me? Okay, let's try.
Gotcha. So we've seen those she's walked and see. So what is a covenant relationship? What does covenant mean for me and you?
Ooh, covenant for me, covenant relationship, I think of first off a covering, a place to go when you're in need or even not in need, but a place where you can pour into and pull out of. It means an agreement between one or two persons or more, or even an organization or more. It's, for me, a place of relief. It sometimes means freedom. It means something that you can gravitate to and get information from. Is a place of wisdom, of knowledge. It's just a pool of information. That's what I see as a covenant relationship. It's not that I'm any better than you or you're any better than me. We're trying to work together to achieve a goal.
That's good. So let's talk about your business, Love Can Expression.
Okay.
I've seen Love Can Expression from a thought on a piece of paper, literally on a sticky note, to on a whiteboard, to reality. So for you, what is Love Can Express? I know it's your personal business, and you do
It
a whole
is.
lot with Love Can. So let's talk about that.
Love Can Expressions, it started as just something, when I was in college, it used to be something that my sister and I would say to each other. I would just say, ooh, love can. She'd be like, can love? Love can. Well, it kind of grew from that, but what it really means for me, my mother, her maiden name is Love, and my dad, of course, he's Cannon. So I kind of put the two together and made Love Can. But it also has a scriptural background. We love 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. Why? Because love covers all things. So I said, well, God, if you cover me and I create a business with you in mind, and when I say that, meaning I ask him, Lord, give me work that my hands can do. And I guarantee you, every time I say that to him, he sends me work. It comes out of nowhere, and most of my business is word of mouth. I created a website, but I can't tell you how many people have probably reached out to me through the website. And actually, I have a Facebook page, but most of my clientele came by word of mouth. And I've always been one to be behind the scenes, so I didn't publicize it a whole lot.
Drop off while you're talking. I see you already doing a little tear out up here. So drop off your Facebook name and your website.
You can find Love Can Expressions on Facebook at Love Can Expressions. That's LUVCAN Expressions with an S. And then my website is lovecanexpressions.com.
Okay, so check her out. Great work. You'll love her work. So Kenya, let's talk about, she does great work again. I'm going to say it one more time. She does great work. So let's talk about the pastor, and I know pastoring, and I'm gonna hate to use this word because we're 2020, so I know I'm past my mindset. But for some women, pastoring through a male, well, you grew up in an AME Zion church,
I did.
So it was a little different for you.
It was a little different.
But for me, it was not. You didn't see men and women in ministry in the Baptist arena.
This is correct.
We just we're new to that. So even how do you find yourself, your placement and your boundaries in ministry when there's so much? For many, they see it as a male dominant.
For me, like you said, it was a little different because I was mainly AME. My dad was the AME. My mom, however, she was Baptist. So I had been in both because this was from the old day where you kind of fellowshipped in the country with multiple churches. So that's back when
somebody had church this Sunday, one had this church, and everybody came together.
So exactly. So I would be at the Baptist church this Sunday and over at the AME church this Sunday, and everybody made one big great choir. However, the protocols that they had, just like you said, there weren't many women in the Baptist arena. So in the AME, I had, bless the Lord, an aunt who could pray, sing, shout, and preach you under the floorboards. And it kind of was like my Mahalia Jackson. And I was like, Lord, are you real about this? Women can do this? So for me, the boundaries were limitless. Because I said, if she can do it, if he empowered me, especially now that this is what I walk in, I said, well, if he empowered her then, he's the same God then as he is now. So I have to just fully trust him that where he takes me, I'll follow. And he's already killed the boundaries. He's already knocked down the walls. I just have to come in and do the work.
So basically, you're just telling that person who's looking in that whatever God has for you,
it's for you.
It's really for you.
It's for you.
It doesn't matter what your traditional walls may look like, what your boundaries may look like. God will tear all that down.
Oh, no.
Or he'll move you to the place where you can go.
Correct, because even when I found LHM or Lighthouse Ministries, I was released by way, sadly, of the passing of my pastor at the time. Because I was in between places. I was like, Lord, do I go or do I not go? And when, sadly, like I say, he passed, I was like, well, Lord, that's my release. And when I came here, I was like, Lord, there are no boundaries, no walls. This feels just like family. And we're sharing the word. We're maturing in the word. And yes, I see it coming to life. I'm growing in a way I didn't never think I would grow to.
I'm going to share a growth moment that I had dealing with Kenya. You know, they say I talk and I'm transparent. I think E.T. said, and Mickey said that earlier. I heard the Lord say to ordain you as a teacher. And I'm like, Lord, I ain't never seen nobody ordained as a license is ordained as a teacher. I'm trying to find out I'm trying to get my badge set. I'm trying like, God, how do I do this? And remind you, because we're not old.
No.
And we're young people trying to do this word to God. And I don't have a whole body. I don't really have anybody at this time. I didn't really have a per se pastor. So I didn't really have anybody to kind of go to and see what do I do. So the Holy Spirit kept saying, she's a ordained teacher. You got to ordain as a teacher. I said, God, how do I do it? So we did it.
Right.
We just did it. I talked it over, I guess, with my dad, and he was like, okay, this works. My biological father, he's like my first pastor. I didn't have it. And so we did it. And from there, we set a trend in our area in ordination. People, even for women, not just women, males being ordained as the office being seen as a fivefold office of a teacher, not as a pastor at that time, which you later became ordained as a pastor. But the Lord told me you had a teaching anointing that was out of this world, and that your calling was to teach the word. And we worked through that. We facilitated through that. It wasn't always easy. When I said she's not a preacher, she's not an ordained pastor, she's a teacher. She's an ordained teacher, and I think God allowed us to open that door for a lot of folks in our area.
Correct. It's awesome being a forerunner for those who are to come behind, because the teaching gift, the teacher office in the fivefold ministry, it doesn't get a lot of light, because most of the time when we see it is, I'm the Sunday school teacher or I'm the Bible school teacher. But that office of teacher holds so much more. And if it's not evident in the fivefold ministry, because we'll shine light on all the rest of them, but the teacher brings the word to life, literally.
Correct.
She or he goes in, reaches in, and pulls all the intricate details that many of us will miss. That is like, no, it's always been here. It's always been evident, but I need you to look deeper into the word. That's what the teacher does.
And sometimes we've seen, too, they said preacher, teacher, pastor, teacher.
Yes.
They try to make it a combination.
Correct.
But it clearly is separated, as five. It's a different one. It's one of the functions. So, God has really allowed us to walk through some things. Man, you've walked through we walked through some stuff. I mean, good and bad stuff. We've seen some stuff, and God has allowed us to. He set us before great men. The Bible says, make room, don't wait on your calling, and make room for you. And we've actually waited, and God has opened up doors. Even in this pandemic time, He's allowed us to do some things that to help other ministries that we didn't always know what we was doing. And a lot of times we just did things by trial and error, not knowing. We just heard we just heard the voice of God, kind of like Evangelist George said earlier. Said in one of her segments that we just heard the voice of God and we just moved on it. So I thank God for just having people who in my life who are obedient enough. Don't always see it, but just say, "Hey, Dean, we can do this. We can do this. We can pray about it, and we'll watch what God does." So, what else do you want to talk about? I mean, we talked about the teacher, the pastor, your business. What else you want to tell them just about being who you are in ministry?
Stay true to yourself, if nothing more, because God can use you in whatever place you're in. Don't try to be like somebody else. Be yourself. If you're comical, use your comedy, but make sure in that they get the context of whatever it is that you're trying to convey. Don't switch around. Don't move for anybody unless God says move, because He has you destined for a thing. There are people who are to hear your voice, and they're to move and to join into the kingdom. There are things, places that you'll go because of who you are. Not who you're trying to be, but because of who you are. Yes, He's going to spiritually grow you, but ultimately, if I change to be like Joseph Dean or even Evangelist George or Evangelist Cooper, then that's no longer Kenya Cannon. That's not who God called me to be. He called me to be Kenya. So when He created me, yes, we're all uniquely formed and wonderfully made, but I can't be them. Because I can't wear their body armor in war. I have to wear mine.
That's right. And yours may be a little to nothing.
Yours
may be a whole lot. Or vice versa. So whatever's for you, that's what God will. Here we're back on that again. Whatever God has for you, it is for you. You can't walk away from it. You have to be true to yourself. And I like that. We have to be true to ourselves.
Correct.
And that's what God calls us to do. He calls us, we're individual. That's what makes the body up. We're all unique in our own way.
Absolutely. And it's no different than, just like you said, going and putting on somebody's armor and it's heavy. Well, that doesn't work for me. I need a lightweight, breathable, dry fit version of armor. Why? Because I might sweat a lot. But ultimately, what He has is ordained for me to walk into. And when I walk into it, it will be no fear. It'll all be freedom. And that which He has me to teach or say or even do, or if it's just to sit in the audience, that presence alone is because that's what He needed.
That's it. Again, Kenya, I've enjoyed it. We talk a whole lot every day, all day, 3 or 4 times a day. So chatting for us is natural. We can sit here and chat another hour, but thank you for chatting with me. Thank you for helping the people. We'll be back. We'll hear a dynamic word from Pastor Cannon.
Absolutely.
Have a good morning.
Good morning. I am Pastor Kenya Cannon from Lighthouse Ministries, and this morning I'm coming to you to ask you one question as I bring the word. Can you follow instructions? My scripture context will be coming from Mark 5, 1 through 20. I'm not going to read the scripture, but I want you to go back and please read it so you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. The key context scriptures will be from about 17 through 20, but you can read the whole thing. But what I want to talk to you about is instructions. Instructions give us order, they give us direction, they give us responsibility and accountability. They can even give us vision. Simply because when we receive instruction from Christ, He's giving us something to do for Him, for us, for the kingdom. If we're a cook, a student, a seamstress, a lawn person, at some walk in our life, we've all encountered instructions. But the question is, how well did we follow the instructions? See, we receive them simply because we don't have foreknowledge of a thing or a scenario, and we have to be brought up to speed. The instructions help you get to an end point, an end destination. Instructions are one's foundation. They're our security blanket to build an image, to build an environment, to build a building. Basically, instructions are a gateway of the ingredients, from the ingredients to a finished product. However, there's those of us who don't like to follow instructions. We like to look at the box, or we look at a picture and we pray we can get the finished product. However, it doesn't always turn out that way. But if we had followed the instructions 1 through 10, we would have gotten the picture on the box exactly as it's supposed to be. However, we do have some who like to read all the instructions, and we lay out all the pieces, and at the end we can see what we have and what we're missing. Following instructions in accordance to how they're given is always vital to the end mission, the end task, where we're going, and more so to be completed in a timely manner, because sometimes instructions have a time limit on them. The only thing that I've known that may not have instructions is how to put a jigsaw puzzle together. However, I have learned that most people who put jigsaw puzzles together start with the outside pieces first, and then they build in. But that's their foundation. So even in that, it's technically instructions within self. Now watch this. This passage, I noticed there were 2 sets of instructions given. The first set was for legion, the herd or the horde of demons. The second set of instructions was given to the man who was possessed by legion. The first set of instructions was for legion to go into the herd of swine that was in the hillside nearby, because they didn't want to be sent into the abyss. So Jesus said, go into the swine. But amazingly, as soon as they entered the swine, they self-destructed because they ran off a cliff. So depending on how we hear and follow the instructions, we may run off a cliff and kill ourselves. What I'm saying is, be careful of the instructions and what we do with them. Because see, Jesus gave them an opportunity. He actually showed compassion on them, but they went about in a manner where they took themselves out. He gave them even an opportunity to follow order because He is higher than them, but they didn't want to listen. And we know a divided house will fall, and that's exactly what they did. But amazingly, the instruction that He gave to the demon-possessed man came after his healing and his deliverance. But quickly, I want to show you what happens when Jesus is nearby. He brings structure. He brings accountability. He brings responsibility. He brings growth. These are all things that we get when we follow instruction. But how many of us are really doing that? Some of us are not even tuning in to what Christ has for us. We tune Him out and we don't get any instructions, and we go about doing life our own way. And this man who had been possessed was living in the tombs. He was living among the dead. There was no life in him. He had no life. He was screaming and yelling and cutting himself, and the neighboring friends and family and even the communities were afraid of him. They didn't want to be bothered. They had him in a place where there was no life to come from. There was no life in a graveyard. There was no life in tombs. There's no life in caves. But he met Christ in the graveyard. In a dead situation, he met life. He met his destiny. He met his forever after. He met something that all of us need in our lives, meaning he met instruction, he met order, he met responsibility, he met accountability, he met spiritual growth. And when he accepted that order, he was able to be healed and delivered and set free of that which bound him to a graveyard, that thing which was causing death in his life, that thing which was cutting off production and promotion in his life. We know that when he was possessed, that the shackles couldn't even hold him because of the strength of Legion. But we know that when Legion saw Christ afar off, even Legion had to recognize and say, oh God, what is it that you would have of me? Even Legion recognized order. So Legion, even in a context when he had possessed the man, he was so in control. When Jesus asked him, what is thy name? Legion replied back, my name is Legion because we are many. The man didn't even recognize himself to answer what his name was. Listen, we can't get so wrapped up in our own daily lives that we forget what we look like and who we are. We need instruction from Christ to lead us to where we're to go, who are we to be for him, and the things that we're to touch, the things that we're to pray for, the things that we're to prophetically tear down and build up. Those things are of Christ, those instructions. He needs us in every walk of our life. He don't need us in the graveyard. He needs us in the streets. He needs us in the church houses. And I know right now in this pandemic, we can't be in the church houses, but even in that, the church lives within us. And as long as we're the church and we represent Christ, he needs our voice. And when I'm going to call him Dan, and I know this man didn't really have a name, but I'm calling him Dan simply because he was delivered as new after he was healed and delivered. So Dan should be all of us. Everywhere we go, we should be delivered as new because someone is looking at us and they say, are you a true follower of Christ? Because the way you act, the way you talk doesn't seem Christ-like to me. But this man, when he was delivered, when he came out of the graveyard and Christ sent him back to Decapolis to his very own, they recognized him afar off. But they had to come and see who he truly was. Is this the man that had been possessed? Is this he who was living in the tomb in the graveyard? Is this truly he who was down in the murk and mire? Because tell me, you know there have been points in your life where you've been down and out and nobody came to see about you. They left you in a place of death. They left you in a place of hurt. They left you in a place of scorn and bitterness. They didn't come to see about you because they didn't want to be bothered. They heard you screaming and calling out for help, but yet they never prayed. They heard you and your need, but they didn't come and see about you until after you had been healed and delivered. If we walk with Christ and we get instructions from him, we know very well that each and every opportunity he's going to give us newness daily. He gives us new opportunities daily. He gives us assignments. He gives us regions. He gives us locations to be in to handle his work. This man, watch this, who had just been delivered, he could have easily chosen to sit in a place where he had been delivered from. He could sit in death. He could sit in bondage. He could have even chosen to depart from Christ like he never met him, like the 9 lepers. He could have even, watch this, pretended as if the miracle didn't even happen. But instead, he did the best thing anybody could ever do, accept Christ in his life and become an immediate disciple because he sat at Jesus' feet. He was so much a disciple that he wanted to go with Christ into the ship to the other city that he was about to depart to. But Christ said, no, go back to your people. I need you to go and minister to them and tell them about the grace and the mercy that I've shown to you. Why? Because when Christ is shown, he is evident in our lives, it's easier to draw the people, especially when we're in states that nobody could have brought us out of except for Christ, in those dead states. This is how he drew. He sent him to a town, it was a metropolis, or better yet, an urban area. It was called Decapolis. It literally means 10 cities. It's his hometown. It's a place where, watch this, 10 says obedience. The number 10, it says responsibility. So Christ, when he told him to go back home, he, the Dan, the now no longer possessed man, he is under instruction. He now has responsibility, and now he can take those same things back to a place that needs responsibility, that needs structure, that needs accountability, and most of all, spiritual growth. They need Christ. So here it is. He can spread the word of Christ simply because he's a walking vessel. He's a walking, oh Lord, watch this. He is now on a learner's permit, but he's drawing people to Christ simply because of his turned around state, his delivered as new state. I seen you when you was in your murk and mire. But because he followed instructions, he drew some. He drew many, because you can guarantee when he went home, one told one to come and see, and another told another to come and see, and another told another, and the word spread about in the land of Galilee. This, when we follow instructions, he gives us blessings. And the blessing here was not just because his health and his wealth. It was not about where he came from, it was where he was going. It was who he was going to draw to Christ. These things. We sometimes get in a selfish state, and we shouldn't think of instructions as something that is going to hinder us or limit us. We should really interpret instructions as something, as guidelines to get us to where Christ needs us to be. Christ can give both of us, individuals and groups, instructions. But be careful, because even after Christ released the demons, there were those who came and wanted Christ to leave, but they never got instruction. Be careful that you don't take someone else's instruction for your own. Be making sure that the instruction is definitely yours. And in my closing, I want to say this. We need to return to the feet of Christ to refocus, restructure, and get our instruction. Because we shouldn't be going about life in no unordered direction and causing havoc like the demon-possessed man was. We need our instructions so that we can live a better life, so that we'll have structure and we can get reconnected to him so he can show us a better life, so we can have a winning chance, a winning chance of overcoming the graveyards in our life. Thank you, and have a blessed day.